For more, Julia Chapman joins us live from Vilnius. Julia, NATO's pronouncement fell short of Ukraine's expectations. Are leaders clean on what they required of Kyiv before giving an invitation or timetable?
Well, Jens Stoltenberg, the NATO Secretary General, speaking in his press conference this afternoon in Vilnius, said that membership was not about a timeline, it was about meeting conditions, and that is something that Ukraine still needs to meet. That was one of the bits that was the wording suggested needed to happen before Ukraine could become a member, but the other was that all allies need to agree, and that is simply something that they haven't achieved yet. There are those members like the Baltic states and Poland that would like to see a pretty imminent offer of membership for Ukraine. Others like the United States and Germany much more reticent. They are concerned because Ukraine is a country at war. NATO doesn't accept nations with territorial disputes, and there is a suggestion that they are a bit worried about triggering and angering Moscow. But we heard some very strong language earlier today from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky when he heard this wording in the communique, talking about it being absurd that there was no timeline. He's obviously frustrated, and he will be expressing those frustrations to the NATO leaders when they meet tomorrow for the first meeting of the NATO-Ukraine Council, one of the new pledges offered by NATO, stepping up its engagement with Ukraine. But he'll also be holding some bilateral talks, including with US President Joe Biden, and he will be seeking some fresh assurances, I can imagine, after this has fallen short of his expectations.
Well, Mr. Stoltenberg also talked about China. What kind of cooperation is the bloc hoping to achieve against what is seized as Beijing's increasing assertiveness?
Well, there was some interesting language about China, which came up a few times in the communique. Of course, NATO is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It is mostly focusing on Euro-Atlantic security. But there are a couple of countries that also border the Pacific, and they are always looking further afield at different threats around the world. In the communique, it suggested, or it said, that China's ambitions and coercive policies challenge NATO's interest, security, and values. It accused China of subverting the rules-based international order, and it said that NATO partners and allies would continue to work together on boosting awareness and resilience. What exactly that looks like, we didn't get any detail, but cyber is certainly a factor in these plans. And they also specifically mentioned freedom of navigation, a veiled reference perhaps to the South China Sea and the situation there, which NATO is going to be keeping a very close eye on. So undoubtedly, this isn't all just about Ukraine and the threat from Russia that NATO perceives, of course, boosting its defenses on the eastern flank, but they're also keeping a very close eye on Beijing as well.
Many thanks for that, Julia. Julia Chapman speaking to us live from Vilnius.